Have you ever been somewhere where like just there's only one person in your entire life that you actually care about?
I look worse in real life. The camera makes me look a little bit better.
And a former Alaska Bush People reality star, Matthew Brown, has died. 2 of his brothers confirmed it online. A sheriff office in Washington says a group of people were searching for him along a river yesterday when he was found.
Millions of people watched Matt Brown grow up, believing they knew exactly who he was. But behind the cameras, a very different story had been unfolding for years. One filled with addiction and a loneliness few people truly understood. So how did the brother, who once helped hold the Brown family together, end up completely alone? And what truth did he reveal that changed everything? Join us as we uncover the heartbreaking story of Matt Brown's final years and the secrets that followed him until the very end, when Matt Brown suddenly vanished. When news first began spreading that Matt Brown had disappeared, many fans refused to believe it. This was the same man audiences had watched survive unforgiving wilderness, harsh winters, and countless challenges on Alaskan bush people. If anyone knew how to endure difficult conditions, surely it was Matt. At first, people convinced themselves there had to be another explanation. Maybe he'd gone off the grid. Or maybe he simply didn't want to be found. But as the hours turned into days, optimism slowly gave way to fear. The search began after authorities received reports of a man near Washington's Okanagan River. Witnesses described seeing someone in distress before the situation changed in a matter of moments. Search crews quickly mobilized, bringing in boats, divers, sonar equipment, and specially trained dogs to comb the river and surrounding areas. Family members refused to sit on the sidelines, joining the search wherever they could, determined to find answers before hope disappeared completely. Then the river added to the difficulty. Severe weather swept across the area, raising water levels and making conditions too dangerous for search teams to continue safely. Officials were forced to suspend parts of the operation until conditions improved. For the Brown family, that decision must have been agonizing. Every hour without news left more room for fear to grow, and every delay made the silence feel heavier. Sometimes the hardest part of a tragedy isn't knowing the truth, it's waiting for it. As concern continued to build, Bear Brown turned to social media and shared something deeply personal. Fighting back emotion, he admitted he feared his older brother had taken his own life, while still clinging to the smallest possibility that the reports were somehow wrong. It wasn't an announcement anyone wanted to hear. It was the heartbreaking confession of a younger brother caught between hope and acceptance, desperately wishing reality would prove him mistaken. 2 days later, the outcome everyone feared became reality. A private search party located Matt's body in the river. Among those present was his brother Noah, who helped recover and identify him. It's difficult to imagine the weight of that moment, one brother searching for another, only to become the person who had to confirm the unimaginable. Some memories stay with you forever, and this was undoubtedly one of them. Not long afterward, Bear returned to the camera, this time to confirm what millions of viewers had already begun to suspect. His voice repeatedly broke as he announced that Matt had passed away at just 43 years old. Yet even in the middle of overwhelming grief, Bear wanted people to understand something else. He spoke about the harsh comments Matt had received online and reminded viewers that every person behind a screen is still a real human being with real emotions. For many people, Matt's passing seemed sudden, but looking back, the warning signs had been there long before anyone realized what they were seeing. So how did the eldest Brown brother, once at the heart of one of reality television's most famous families, end up carrying so much pain almost entirely on his own? The confession that tore the family apart. For years, the Brown family built its reputation around one simple idea. No matter what happened, they faced it together. That image became the heart of Alaskan bush people. Viewers watched them overcome harsh weather, financial struggles, family disagreements, and the challenges of living far from modern society. They argued, laughed, celebrated, and mourned together. To millions of fans, they weren't just reality television stars, they represented a family whose bond seemed impossible to break. But as the cameras continued rolling, something quietly changed. Matt, the oldest of Billy and Amy Brown's 7 children, gradually became less visible. At first, many viewers assumed it was temporary. Instead, his absence grew more noticeable with every season. While the rest of the family continued building homes, filming adventures, and promoting new episodes, Matt seemed to be living an entirely different life away from the spotlight. As expected, questions quickly followed. Why wasn't he appearing with the rest of the family anymore? Had he chosen to leave? Had there been an argument nobody knew about? For a long time, there were more rumors than answers, and the Browns largely avoided discussing the situation publicly. That silence only made the mystery grow. Then, in 2021, everything changed. Only a few months after the passing of Billy Brown, Matt uploaded a deeply emotional video that completely altered how many fans viewed the family. Sitting alone outdoors at night, he explained that he had reached a point where he could no longer remain silent. According to Matt, carrying what he described as years of hidden truths had become emotionally unbearable. He admitted he knew speaking publicly could damage what little relationship remained with his family, but he believed staying quiet was hurting him even more. During that video, Matt made several serious allegations. He claimed that parts of Alaskan bush people did not accurately reflect the family's real life, and alleged there were behind-the-scenes issues viewers had never been allowed to see. He also made allegations involving family finances and claimed he had been denied money he believed he had earned. Those allegations have never been independently verified, and Discovery Channel did not publicly respond to them. Regardless of where people stood, the impact was immediate. The strongest public response came from Bear Brown. He firmly rejected Matt's allegations, describing them as false and expressing concern that his brother needed professional help rather than public attention. Other members of the family remained largely silent, and whatever hope existed for reconciliation seemed to slip even further away. Perhaps the saddest part wasn't the disagreement itself. It was how isolated Matt appeared throughout it all. But the distance between Matt and his family didn't begin with that confession. The cracks had started forming years earlier, during a battle that would slowly change the course of his entire life, the fight he couldn't win. Long before the family conflict, the emotional videos, or the heartbreaking search by the river, Matt Brown was already fighting a battle that few people fully understood. While millions of viewers saw the confident outdoorsman on television, another story was quietly unfolding behind the cameras. It wasn't a single mistake that changed his life. It was a struggle that grew little by little until it affected nearly everything around him. The first public warning came before Alaskan bush people had even become a television phenomenon. In 2013, Matt was arrested after borrowing a woman's vehicle following a night of drinking, colliding with a parked motorcycle, and leaving the scene. Authorities later reported that his blood alcohol level was nearly twice the legal limit. The following year, he received a short jail sentence and probation. At the time, the incident attracted relatively little public attention. But looking back, many now see it as the beginning of a much deeper personal battle. By 2016, Matt made the difficult decision to enter an inpatient rehabilitation program. After completing treatment, he spoke candidly about his experience, explaining that he had watched himself slowly become someone he no longer recognized. He described losing interest in the things that once excited him and admitted he could feel himself drifting further away from the life he wanted. Rather than hiding his addiction, he openly acknowledged it, hoping his story might encourage someone else to seek help before reaching the same point. For a while, there was reason to believe he had changed for better. Matt spoke optimistically about recovery, saying he wanted to transform one of the darkest chapters of his life into a source of strength. Fans celebrated his honesty, believing the worst was finally behind him. It seemed like the beginning of a fresh start. Sadly, recovery is rarely a straight line. In 2018, Matt entered treatment once again after suffering a relapse. His father, Billy Brown, publicly supported the decision, explaining that the family would rather spend time apart helping Matt recover than risk losing him altogether. At the time, those words reflected hope. Years later, they would carry an almost unbearable weight. Around the same period, Matt's life became even more complicated. Two women came forward with allegations of sexual assault relating to separate incidents in California. The Los Angeles County District Attorney later declined to file charges, citing insufficient evidence, and no criminal charges were brought against him. Even so, the allegations attracted significant public attention and added another layer of pressure to an already difficult period in his life. By then, Matt's relationship with the show had effectively come to an end. While the rest of the Brown family relocated to Washington and continued filming new seasons, he remained on the outside looking in. The series that had introduced him to millions of viewers continued without its eldest son, leaving fans to wonder whether the separation was temporary or permanent. Losing the show didn't simply mean losing a television role. It meant losing the routine, the identity, and the close-knit environment that had defined most of his adult life. Addiction had already taken a heavy toll, but now isolation was beginning to replace it. The farther he drifted from the family audiences knew, the more difficult it seemed to find a path back. Yet despite everything he'd already endured, the most heartbreaking chapter of Matt Brown's story was still ahead. Because in the final weeks of his life, he began sharing moments that, in hindsight, looked less like ordinary updates and more like quiet cries for help that almost nobody recognized in time. The warning signs everyone missed. Looking back now, it's difficult to watch Matt Brown's final videos without noticing things that seemed almost invisible at the time. When they were first uploaded, many viewers saw them as ordinary updates from a man trying to rebuild his life after years of personal struggles. Today, those same videos feel completely different. What once looked like optimism now carries the weight of quiet desperation. In the weeks leading up to his passing, Matt continued posting on YouTube and social media, speaking about recovery, self-improvement, and finding peace away from the spotlight. On the surface, he appeared determined to move forward. But beneath the encouraging words, there were moments that left many longtime followers deeply concerned. During one live stream filmed in a public park, he appeared visibly distressed and confused, prompting viewers to wonder whether something was seriously wrong. Those watching could sense his pain, but no one truly knew how much he was carrying. Then came one of the most heartbreaking videos he ever shared. Around 3 weeks before his passing, Matt revealed that he had spent the previous night sleeping in a cemetery because he couldn't find anywhere else he considered safe. He explained that his late father had once told him cemeteries were peaceful places to rest while traveling, because nobody would disturb you there. So he laid down between two graves and spent the night alone beneath the open sky. What happened next is almost impossible to hear without feeling a lump in your throat. After describing that experience, Matt looked into the camera, smiled faintly, and assured everyone he was doing well. He thanked his supporters for their encouragement and insisted that he was okay. Many viewers accepted those words at face value because they wanted to believe them. The warning signs weren't limited to his circumstances alone. In some of his final videos, Matt spoke openly about the emotional impact of the criticism he received online. He admitted that many of the harsh comments left by strangers had affected him far more deeply than people probably realized. When Bear Brown later addressed the public following his brother's passing, he returned to that very point. Fighting through visible emotion, he reminded viewers that every profile picture represents a real person with real feelings. He urged people to think twice before leaving cruel comments because they never truly know what someone else may be going through. It wasn't simply a plea for kindness. It sounded like a brother wishing the world had shown a little more compassion before it was too late. But perhaps the biggest question wasn't what happened during Matt Brown's final weeks. Perhaps it was whether he had ever been allowed to simply be himself in the first place. The life he never really chose. Long before the addiction, the family conflict, or the heartbreaking videos that marked his final years, Matt Brown had been living a life unlike almost anyone else. Before he was old enough to decide who he wanted to become, millions of people already believed they knew exactly who he was. That's the hidden cost of growing up on reality television. Eventually, the line between the person and the character becomes difficult to separate, even for the person living it. Born in 1982, Matt was the eldest of Billy and Amy Brown's 7 children. According to the family's story, the Browns lived deep in the Alaskan wilderness, raising their children far from modern society and teaching them to survive off the land. When Alaskan Bush People premiered in 2014, audiences around the world were captivated by that lifestyle. Matt quickly became one of the show's standout personalities. He was confident, adventurous, humorous, and often the dependable older brother viewers naturally gravitated toward. For years, that image became his identity, but as the show's popularity exploded, questions about its authenticity also began to surface. Public records, legal filings, and investigative reports challenged parts of the family's public narrative, while critics argued that some aspects of the series had been heavily dramatized or reconstructed for television. Like many reality programs, Alaskan Bush People appeared to blur the line between documentary and entertainment, leaving viewers wondering how much of what they watched reflected everyday life. Whether those criticisms were fair or not, Matt understood something the audience never could. Every season required him to step back into a version of himself that millions of strangers had already accepted as real. The expectations never disappeared when filming ended. Perhaps that's why his later YouTube videos felt so different. Without producers shaping the narrative or editors deciding which moments viewers would see, Matt seemed determined to present himself honestly, even when that honesty was uncomfortable. He spoke openly about failure, recovery, regret, and emotional pain. Ironically, the same honesty that drew loyal supporters also seemed to deepen the divide with parts of his own family. The more he tried to tell his story in his own words, the further he appeared to drift from the people he had once stood beside on screen. By the end of his life, Matt Brown wasn't simply fighting addiction or family estrangement. He was also fighting to reclaim ownership of his own identity after spending years living inside a story that millions believed was completely true. And perhaps that's why his story continues to resonate today, because behind the headlines and television cameras lies a lesson far bigger than one family or one reality show. What Matt Brown left behind. After Matt Brown's passing, many people focused on the headlines. They talked about the search, the family conflict, the addiction, and the heartbreaking way his story ended. But as time passed, a different conversation began to emerge. It wasn't just about how he died. It was about how he lived, what he carried, and whether anyone truly understood him while he was still here. His life also reignited conversations about the hidden cost of reality television. Fame can bring opportunity, but it can also create expectations that are incredibly difficult to escape. Once someone becomes a public figure, every mistake, every setback, and every personal struggle can become entertainment for millions of strangers. While viewers move on to the next episode or the next headline, the people living those stories have to carry the consequences long after the cameras stop rolling. Then there was Bear Brown's message, perhaps the most powerful lesson to come from this tragedy. In the middle of grieving his older brother, he asked people to remember that words matter. He explained that Matt had spoken about how deeply negative comments affected him and reminded viewers that the person on the other side of a screen is still a human being. Whether people agreed with Matt's decisions, believed every allegation he made, or questioned some of the choices he made throughout his life, it's impossible to ignore one thing. He spent his final years searching for honesty. He openly admitted his failures, spoke about addiction without pretending to have all the answers, and tried to tell his story in his own words, even when he knew many people would disagree with him. That kind of vulnerability isn't easy, especially after spending years living in front of millions of viewers. In the end, Matt Brown's greatest legacy may not be the television show that made him famous. It may be the reminder that every public figure is still a human being. Every family has struggles the world can't see, and every act of kindness matters far more than we often realize. Did Matt Brown pay the price for telling a truth that others wanted to keep hidden? Or was his story ultimately shaped by years of addiction, family conflict, and the crushing pressure of living life in the public eye? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.